Let's get right into it. Number 10, the surgical sponge that disappeared. With more than 28 million operations performed nationwide, around 1,500 cases per year involve foreign bodies left behind during surgery. And the most common culprit? Surgical sponges. These things are basically expensive cotton balls that surgeons use to soak up blood during operations. Sponges are hard to keep track of because they're used to soak up blood. They turn red, they get buried in organs, and suddenly they're invisible. One patient had a sponge left in her abdomen for 18 months. It formed a massive abscess that doctors initially thought was cancer. They were about to remove half her liver before discovering it was just forgotten cotton. In other instances, sponges left in patients were mistaken for tumors, resulting in parts of their intestines being removed. These sponges can cause infections, internal bleeding, and organ failure. The scary part? Some patients live with them for years before anyone figures it out. Number 9, the 12-inch surgical clamp that went rogue. Imagine having foot-long metal pliers permanently installed in your chest. That's exactly what happened to one patient who had heart surgery. The surgical team somehow lost track of a 12-inch chest retractor clamp during the operation. This thing was designed to hold the rib cage open during surgery. For 2 years, this patient suffered from chronic pain, shortness of breath, and recurring infections. In one case, a California man who had 2 surgical clamps left inside him suffered infections and septic shock that led to a stroke. X-rays kept showing this mysterious metal object, but doctors kept assuming it was supposed to be there. It took 14 different hospital visits before someone finally said, "Hey, that giant metal clamp doesn't belong in there." By then, the patient had developed sepsis and needed months of recovery after removal. Number 8, the living fly that took up residence. An entire housefly was discovered inside a 63-year-old patient's colon during a colonoscopy. Not just fly parts, a whole intact fly. The doctors were completely baffled about how it got there. The man had no memory of swallowing a fly and no idea how long it had been living rent-free in his intestines. The fly was perfectly preserved, like it had been vacuum sealed. This case made medical journals because nobody could explain the physics of how a fly survives the trip through stomach acid and ends up intact in the colon. The patient was completely fine, but imagine finding out you've been carrying around a tiny corpse for who knows how long. Number 7, the disappearing dentures that went on vacation. An elderly woman went to the emergency room complaining of difficulty swallowing and chest pain. After a week of tests, doctors discovered her dentures had somehow migrated into her esophagus and were stuck there. She had no memory of swallowing them. The dentures had been missing for 6 days, and family members had been searching the house thinking they were lost somewhere in her bedroom. Meanwhile, they were slowly working their way down her throat. Removing them required emergency surgery because they were wedged so tightly that they were cutting off her airway. The weird part? She had been eating and drinking normally for days while carrying around a full set of teeth in her throat. Number 6, the razor blade collection. One patient came to the hospital with stomach pain, and doctors found not 1, not 2, but 40 razor blades in their stomach. This person had been swallowing razor blades over several months, and their stomach had turned into a dangerous metal collection. Each blade was still sharp, creating hundreds of tiny cuts in the stomach lining. The surgery to remove them took over 4 hours because surgeons had to carefully extract each blade without causing more damage. The patient survived, but their stomach looked like a war zone. The most terrifying part? Some of the blades had started working their way toward vital organs. Number 5, the lost contact lens that went exploring. A 68-year-old woman went to the doctor complaining of a droopy eyelid that had been bothering her for 6 months. When doctors examined her, they found a hard contact lens that had been missing for 28 years. 28 years! This lens had been living under her eyelids since the 1980s, slowly embedding itself deeper into the tissue. The woman had completely forgotten about losing the lens decades earlier. Over time, her eyelid had grown around it, creating a small cyst. The contact lens had to be surgically removed because it had become part of her anatomy. The scary thing is she had been to eye doctors multiple times over the years, and nobody noticed. Number 4, a teenager was listening to music when one of his earbuds fell out. He looked everywhere for it but couldn't find it. 3 months later, he went to the doctor complaining of hearing loss and ear pain. The doctor looked inside his ear and found the missing earbud lodged deep in his ear canal. It had been sitting there for months, slowly causing an infection and damaging his hearing. The earbud had worked its way so deep that it required surgical removal. The patient had been walking around for months with a tiny speaker blasting sound directly into his inner ear tissue. His hearing eventually recovered, but it took months of treatment. Number 3. A woman accidentally swallowed her wedding ring while taking pills. She thought it would pass through naturally in a few days. 2 months later, she was still waiting. The ring had gotten stuck in her small intestine and was slowly cutting through the tissue. By the time she sought medical help, the ring had created a small hole in her intestinal wall and was causing internal bleeding. Emergency surgery revealed that the ring had been slowly sawing through her insides like a tiny metal blade. The doctors had to remove a section of damaged intestine along with the ring. She spent 3 weeks in the hospital recovering from what started as a simple accident. Number 2. A child swallowed 22 powerful magnetic balls from a toy set. These weren't ordinary magnets, they were rare earth magnets, some of the strongest magnets on the planet. Once inside the digestive system, they started attracting each other through the intestinal walls. Imagine your intestines getting pinched between supermagnets from the inside. The magnets created multiple holes in the child's intestines as they pulled together with enormous force. Emergency surgery revealed a chain of magnets that had essentially turned the child's digestive system into an accordion. It took multiple surgeries to remove all the magnets and repair the damage. The child spent 2 months in the hospital and needed part of their intestine removed. Number 1. Dante Attulo from Chicago accidentally fired a 3.5-inch nail into his head with a nail gun. Unaware of the severity, he only sought medical help after persistent nausea and headaches. An X-ray revealed the nail, which had penetrated his brain. But here's the terrifying part. He had been walking around for days with a nail in his brain completely unaware. The nail had somehow managed to miss every critical structure in his brain. It was sitting right next to his brainstem, the part that controls breathing and heart rate. 1 millimeter in either direction and he would have died instantly. Surgery removed the nail and Dante recovered fully. The surgeon said they had never seen anything like it. The nail had threaded its way through his brain tissue like it had GPS navigation, avoiding everything important. They called it a medical miracle wrapped in a nightmare. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.